Yeah, they may probably close. Temporarily. Hey! Sure, I'll pull one for you. You want to stand down? I'm happy to Here, I'll keep mine low, you put your top.
I can do it now. I think I have to.
It's tomorrow.
I can't print it out and sign anything because I don't have
If you need, it's okay. I can just submit it as it is.
I did it at 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'll get it. It's funny that you didn't notice on the first reading. Did you like how I wrote?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I have my mom over at the access. Have you wanted to renew them for
Yes, you do. You are a lifetime educator.
Good evening, everyone. I got my order representing the Hampton Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. I see that Wilbraham Public Access Channel is recording. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? We will do roll call in alphabetical order. Cheryl Caruana, Tim Collins, Sean Kennedy,
Aye.
Lisa Murray, here. Rich Redeker, here. Mike Cherabasi,
Yeah.
and Michelle Boudreaux, here. If you please stand, Cheryl will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are going to begin with our student representative. We have Cadence Illick here. Thank you.
Thank you. Recently, we are preparing for some of our upcoming events that we are having. I know tomorrow, student council, a group of us are going with some of our special education friends, and we are going to Oakmont to do our bocce trip that we do. In addition to that, we just finished finals with the support of the teachers. We had really great semester, and we are all looking forward to another great semester. That's all.
Thank you very much. We will continue with new business. We'll begin with Project Lead the Way. Student Solve, Mrs. Barrett, is here this evening. And just make sure you press the button so the green light's on. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Barrett. I am the science specialist at Green Meadows School and the Project Lead the Way team leader for the district. I'm here to talk about an event that we ran in the district called Student Solve on December 12th. Some slides and pictures for you. Very excited to be able to share some of the things that we do as Project Lead the Way and science in our district. So I'd like to start with thanks to the 1-8 Foundation and Project Lead the Way for helping make this event possible. I wanted to give you a little background on what these organizations are so that you understand how they support us
here in the district. So the 1-8 Foundation helps support programs and curriculums that center around applied learning in Massachusetts. They work alongside the Mass Learning Project and Project Lead the Way to find funding and grant opportunities to bring students applied learning, where students learn rigorous content and use their new knowledge to solve authentic problems. The 1-8 Foundation has helped us get multiple grants in the district to get Project Lead the Way up and running. Currently, right now, we have a grant to get Project Lead the Way at the high school as we create an engineering pathway at the high school. Project Lead the Way is a hands-on science curriculum and engineering curriculum that empowers students to apply knowledge and build technical skills that are needed for success. It's an inquiry-based learning that uses an APB approach, which combines activities, project-based learning, and problem-based learning to teach concepts, provide projects to apply the concepts, and ultimately challenge students with a larger problem to develop a deeper understanding. We currently have Project Lead the Way at all of our elementary schools, and also at the middle school where it is offered as a related arts option. And like I mentioned, at the high school, we have our first year now as we continue to build our pathway. So what is Student Solve? Student Solve was a 4-hour virtual ideathon. Students had a chance to apply the skills they've been learning in their classrooms and work alongside industry professionals. It's designed as an in-school field trip, which made it equitable for all students to be able to attend. And the students worked in teams to tackle a real problem from a local company. So in our classrooms, we're able to give students scenarios to apply their learning to, but they know that it's just something that the teachers have come up with. This was a real problem from real companies, and that really got the buy-in from the students. This year, we had 3 schools that participated in Student Solve. At Green Meadows, we had Mrs. Chaplain, Mrs. Nelson, and Miss O'Neill's class that were able to participate. We were able to have 2 teams of 25 students each. I did get special permission to have 2 teams of 27 students so that all 4th graders at Green Meadows could participate. And that was led by myself and the science specialist from Mile Tree, Tiffany Mitchell. That's because this program needs to be run by a Project Lead the Way trained teacher, so she came over to support me at my school. At Sewell Road, they chose 2 classrooms, Mr. Lanuccia's and Mr. Mulvaney's class, and Brett Overgard, who is the science specialist at Sewell Road, as well as Christine Goonan, who came from Stony Hill, as she's Project Lead the Way trained to help support him. And at Minnechaug, the Introduction to Engineering Design class was able to participate, led by their Project Lead the Way teacher, John Demkowski. So what did it look like? Project Lead the Way and the 1-8 was able to get 165 teachers in classrooms to participate this across the state, and industry partners that were all based out of Massachusetts. The really fun and exciting thing for both teachers and students was that it was a secret. So we didn't know which company we were going to have or what problem we were going to have until the day of. So the students were excited looking at the options as to what they could be solving. I know many of mine wanted Liberty Mutual because they wanted the emu to show up. He did not. The mailer that you see in the middle was actually sent to us by the 1-8 Foundation, and we were not allowed to open it until our after-school webinar that we had to explain everything to us. In our mailer, there were worksheets that we needed, stickers for the students, labels for their teams. Everything was thought of by the foundation for us. We also were gifted web cameras so that we could be using them during the in-school field trip. And then the bags of Legos were like a parting gift for the students that all tied into what we were doing that day. You can also see the student agenda. I threw it in there for you to see how they had everything planned out. We were coordinated starting off with event kickoff with everyone in Massachusetts participating. Then our classroom kickoffs went to our specific mentors from the company we were assigned, where they then revealed the problem for the students. And then the students jumped right in with their teams and helped design a solution to their problem. So here you can see that students are learning what the problem is and learning who their mentors are. Part of the challenge was that they needed to come up with multiple ideas, as engineers do, share their thoughts, and then they would use a rubric, a design matrix, as we call it in the Project Lead the Way world, where they would figure out which of their problems, there's an example on the bottom there, which of their problems would meet the design criteria the best. That would help them pick their final design choice that they would then bring to their mentor. They had 2 in-person mentor meetings. So what that means is as the students were individually working, they would each have a meeting on Zoom with that little camera that we got with their mentor to flesh out their ideas and get some feedback from the mentor from the company. The high school was paired with Alnylam Pharmaceuticals in Cambridge, where they were asked to come up with ideas to make their shipments of medical supplies more sustainable by reducing waste and using more recyclable materials while still keeping the fragile materials safe. The 4th graders at Green Meadows and at Sewell Road were paired with Vecna Robotics, which is a Massachusetts company that helps warehouses work better by using robots. The challenge was to come up with ideas to make the robots more of a welcomed teammate in the warehouse instead of just another piece of machinery there. In these pictures, you can see the students having their mentor meetings. As they would show them, they would hold up their work and get feedback from the industry professional. And the students knew that these were real problems. These were not just made for fun. These were actual problems the businesses had, and they wanted the high brain of the students to help them figure it out. So as they went through this process and they made their final submission after having those 2 meetings with their mentors, they were then able to submit their idea to the company, which then was chosen, certain winners, as to which idea they thought was going to be the most plausible and the most innovative for their company. Very excited to announce that we had winners at Sewell Road School, the team led by Brett Overgaard, Peyton Bailey, Ryan Page, Emerson Falvey, Isaiah Gee, and Riley Bullocky came up with this excellent idea of how to make the robot more personable in the warehouse. This is the challenge that they were actually getting. So the design criteria said it needed to be robot focused. Performance needed to not slow down the robot, so we couldn't give it a cape that would make it trip and fall in the warehouse. It had to be sustainable. It couldn't use extra energy to make the robot run, and the cost should be low cost, a low cost change to the robot. So this group's idea was that the robot might be able to change colors, but their specific idea, and a lot of students had this idea, was that it needed to speak to them in their native language. The thing that made their idea stand out was that, as the mentor said, they had the intuitive idea for the human to say hello to the robot, and it would identify what language to use to speak back to them. So by using their idea, they also came up with how it would work, which was really made their idea stand out versus all the rest of the students. They were very, very excited, and I do have a video to show you. Will that display on its own, or do I have to hit it? So this is the students. Mr. Overgaard talked to them about their experience and how they felt about winning.
Erin, I think you have to hit this button.
can see, between Project Lead the Way and the Student Solve event, students are very excited about their learning, and they're able to see where it can be applied to real life, which is what inquiry-based and applied learning looks like in our classrooms. The students did earn their class, the whole class that they were a part of, a trip to go to Vecna Robotics and actually meet the people who work there and learn a little bit more about the industry. So Sue is working out the logistics on making that happen, but that's very cool for their school. Thank you for letting me take the time to share the amazing work that Project Lead the Way teachers are doing in our schools. This event was possible thanks to the dedication and hard work of our team who attended after-school information sessions, planned as a team through emails and virtual meetings, and individually coordinated the details of their specific schools to make this event run smoothly. I'm proud to be a part of the Project Lead the Way community in our district, and I look forward to your continued support with the work we do for students.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Jessica?
Thank you. Yeah, maybe Vecna wants to change their name. Anyone Stranger Things out there? Yeah, you might want to.
The kids said the same thing.
Before you go, I had one question. Yeah. You showed the map of the 165 teachers in classrooms in 100 schools across the state. Could you just interpret that map a little bit? What do those blue dots and the gray dots mean?
Oh, sure. So it was showing across Massachusetts the spaces that we did have schools participating. So Project Lead the Way is not taught in all districts, even though I think it should be. So some of the empty spaces might be areas that don't teach Project Lead the Way, but also some districts just weren't able to make it happen within their schools. So those blue dots all show where there was participation in Student Solve for that day.
So if I'm looking at this right, we're leading the way in Western Massachusetts because I don't see any other blue dots out there.
We were one of the few in Western Mass that were able to participate.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we will continue with MASC training. We have our MASC field rep. We have Liz LaFond here. Thank you. We enjoy having you every year.
Hi everyone. I'm going to watch my step. I have grown up and worked my entire life in school buildings, and I know about the wires. Does anyone mind if I sit here? No? Thank you. Thanks for having me back here.
Turn the,
Oh, turn the mic. Thanks for having me back here. It's always a pleasure to be here amongst folks that I've known and worked with over the years, and folks that I've collaborated and networked with at various times, so thanks. And super exciting, I have to say, to be in a room full of people who are all committed, right, to doing the work to continue to move students and the student outcomes in the district forward. So I'm appreciative for that tonight. I might not sleep, I'm so excited to be out. I also really appreciate the fact that you all are willing to do this on a rotating basis, you know, just as a refresher and sort of a reminder. It's not always easy to work together with a group of colleagues on this work, right? We all bring our own experiences and ideas to the table, and Massachusetts really has our buckets of work pretty limited. So I'm going to talk from that perspective tonight officially. And I think that I've pared this way back, so you'll all appreciate that. Please feel free to stop me along the way if you have any questions, okay? So I can tell you from my own experiences previously being on a school committee and apparently never just getting enough and jumping into a race to be elected in my brand new community where I probably knew 10 people, and yet I got elected. Because not everybody wants to do this work, right? And not everybody wants to take the time to learn to understand the work that we're supposed to do. We don't always get along, and we have a very small committee, but we are trying very hard. We're going to talk about responsibilities generally under the law, as prescribed, open meeting law, high overview, subcommittees, which I'm talking to committees more and more about as they're trying to reorganize and streamline the work so that the work happening in subcommittees supports the goals of the district, supports the strategic priorities, and the work that the whole board is doing, right? And again, a brief overview of there's essentially the MASC committee member code of ethics that is very much in line with what ethics in Massachusetts require of elected bodies. So we know from past presentations that the committee only exercises its power through the whole body at open posted meetings, or where there's an exception, executive sessions for very specific purposes. You govern through policy, main bucket of work, financial resources, another main bucket of work, and goal setting, which it comes in Wilbraham, Munson, Wilbraham, Hamden, Wilbraham, I'll get it right, through goal setting, strategic plans, superintendent working with the superintendent to set superintendent goals that align to those strategic priorities in your strategic plan. And if the committee sets goals, those goals also should be aligned to those strategic, how you can support, or work can support those strategic priorities. And the other bucket the law assigns to you is, as you know, hiring and evaluating superintendent. 4 buckets of work. So committees are trying, they're really trying to reorganize and streamline that process so the work happening in school committees is assigned specifically to help move the goals of the district forward. You know how critically important it is. And congratulations once again, I'm sure I said this every time, on having my friend and former colleague John Provost here. You've got a good one. So I know you're working on sustaining that relationship, and you are the employer of record for all employees in the district, even though you have only one, which essentially means you bargain in good faith. You, if anything goes amiss, you are the employer of record, and you will always be attached to any congratulations to any concerns that might arise in the district, any form of litigation or that kind of thing. Now we know that as individual members, as much as I would like to have more authority on my school committee to get things rolling in the right direction, I do not, nor do any individual members of an elected body, right? And as the chair, who works as your servant to keep things organized and flowing, agenda setting, working with the superintendent, oftentimes talking with council on your behalf. No member here, essentially outside the body at the table in an open meeting, has any more authority than any other member of the public. It is critically important that this work focuses on contributing to the goals and priorities of the district. Ever changing, getting ever more difficult in the climate that we're in, financially and in terms of providing the students in the district the best and most critical supports that you can. It's important at the table when anything's being discussed to ask the critical questions, right? It doesn't mean that you're being nitpicky or troublemaker-ish, which I can feel the eye roll from across the table in my school committee, but you know what? I'm really just trying to get us all moving in the same direction. I don't take offense by it. We need to remember that whether we're on the winning or losing side of any vote, it is our responsibility as an elected official to support the formal action of the board going forward. We can still have our opinions, we can still share them, and I suggest, as I always have to you, to share them thoughtfully in a measured way, because remember, you always come back to the table to do the good work of serving the students in this community. Our main focus, always. So the roles are fairly simple, and my colleagues love these little transitions, which drive me just a little bit crazy. The committee's role is governance. The superintendent's role is management. You are the end in terms of approving things like the mission, vision, and goals for the district. You work with the superintendent who brings recommendations into you. You work together as a team to reach, something agreeable to the mission, to moving the students forward, moving the district forward. With the goals aligned to the mission and vision. There's so much work that goes into creating goals in any school district now in terms of always keeping that focus on student outcomes. While staff and community is equally as important, our main mission is to focus on students. Any policy, as we all know, is what governs the work in the district outside of these meetings. Budget comes into you from the superintendent as a recommendation, superintendent and director of finance. You work with the superintendent probably in finance committee meetings over a long period of time to try to figure out the best way to provide the substantial amount of services and programming that you need to provide in this district. With funds that we are more and more wondering, particularly from the federal level, if they'll be there. And even now more so from the state level, because the state is being called upon to fund so many more things that are being cut from the federal level. Not an easy position to be in. You're essentially the bridge between the community and the superintendent. You get all those phone calls. Many of you probably shop out of town because shopping in a local supermarket can be difficult. It can take you 3 hours to get through on a Saturday. Your work happens by authorizing actions related to those 4 buckets of work and monitoring the progress going forward. Once you've done that job, the superintendent and his team's job is to create strategies, action plans, regulations, and procedures to ensure that those votes, those actions that you've taken at this table are applied as you have imagined they would apply throughout the district, evenly and fairly. The superintendent here, he is essentially the bridge between staff and the committee. He brings almost everything. I can't really think of anything, but I'm going to say there could be a time, there could be something that comes in other than initially from a recommendation from the superintendent, but it's the superintendent's job to recommend all of these things to you first for subsequent action. Well, here you go. So you all know this quite well. I swear when I ran through this at home, it all fit in there perfectly, so I apologize for that. District goals are created, your strategic plan is created. That is a group effort. The superintendent comes in with recommendations after having met with all appropriate stakeholders, right? Looking at miles and miles of data to determine why you need to do the things you need to do. Once those are approved, all the school improvement plans, the goals in those are aligned to your strategic plans. Superintendent's goals are aligned, as I said, to the strategic plan, as are school committee goals and concatenated. Administrator goals similarly align. Teacher goals align, and the administrators ensure that that's true. And the end goal, I like to say student outcome, but officially in the state of Massachusetts, it's student achievement. I think we can help students have successful outcomes in many different ways. But if we spend time at the table going astray from the work that we've been assigned by law, it can get frustrating for folks. Both the folks who are well-intentioned and bring ideas forward, and the rest of the committee members who need to remember and do often remember where their work is focused. So the law says that you create policy for the district. It's how your district operates and functions. They're clear statements, and they're set forth in general terms, so that procedures can then be created by the superintendent and staff to ensure that those policies are fairly implemented across the district. Those policies create the framework by which the superintendent and staff essentially discharge their duties over the course of not only the year, but multiple years. And everything that is officially a policy only becomes a policy once the school committee adopts it. I know the word policy is used often in the schools in ways that it is not actually policy, but if you don't approve it, it's not a policy. Many of our policies are regulated as well, and it's becoming more and more common that they're regulated. So as I said, you have, while you are the employer of record for every employee in the district, you have one employee, that is the superintendent. You do have advise and consent. The school business manager is a position where, which is a little bit unique in that the school committee initially contracts with the school business manager, but once that initial contract is signed, the school business manager is then supervised and evaluated by the superintendent. Similarly, assistant superintendent's director of special ed, and I'm going to read this out loud as I do everywhere, and people are stunned. Physicians, which I'm sure you contract with, nurses and attendance officer. This is just a case where MGL has not caught up with current practice. Most nurses are covered by collective bargaining and are not hired at will anymore. And I can't think of a single district in the Commonwealth that still has a attendance officer, which is a civil service position. Since it's written in the law, I spell it out for you. You do have a quite lengthy, detailed, and regulated policy on personnel in your policy manual. You establish compensation through collective bargaining and through bargaining with non-union employees. And lucky you, you are the employer of record. Usually not when everything's going right, is not when folks look at the school committee and say, thank you, employer of record, for doing all the things right. It's when things are concerning. They look your way and remind you of that role. Doesn't everybody love a good fiscal year? July 1 to June 30 is a fiscal year. It always sort of starts out with, like we're currently in, it makes sense now in January, we're in fiscal year 26, you all know that. You have a section not as lengthy on budget, your policy manual, extremely regulated. Department of Revenue and the Inspector General's office and DESE are very specific about things you must and must not do. Once the budget has been, once you've gone through your entire budget process, the superintendent's brought his recommendation, you've talked at length in finance, you've probably made some adjustments, and your budget is approved. Your monitoring power is in approving transfers between the major cost centers. DESI doesn't define what your major cost centers are. Those are created here at the district level. But if you are in a position where you're transferring something from, for example, well, we do have a big storm coming, but we like to use this example because it's very simple. You haven't used as much money as you budgeted for snow removal, but you need a new para in the spring. And you need to transfer money from that expense account into personnel. That's something that the school committee approves. And of course, you look at warrants. Do you have a single signer here? Subcommittee, full board? Full board. Full board. Okay, a lot of people have moved to the single signer. Some still use subcommittees. The board that I'm on still uses the full board as well. So every school committee meeting, we get the warrants. I love that they're categorized in such a way that you can understand how the money's spent. And if there's ever a question, of course, anybody on the committee who's a signer has the right to see those bills or invoices for services. And that's how you monitor to ensure that the budget's being spent the way you intended it to be spent, right? A word on subcommittees. It is really becoming a thing that school committees have focused more over the past couple of years on subcommittees than they ever have before. There was a time that school committees could have a whole list of subcommittees, 7, 10 subcommittees, everything from building maintenance to fields and grounds to curriculum and instruction, personnel. Many of those, of course, are no longer needed because the law is very clearly defined the roles of what an elected school committee is responsible for. And the reorganization comes from understanding how to best combine the work that makes sense so that multiple committees aren't meeting on the same item, like building and finance is not, building and maintenance is working on an item that won't get anywhere until finance sees it, right? So oftentimes now people are looking for suggestions and ways to combine the responsibilities of where the money is spent and how it's spent under one umbrella. Similarly, with the goals development, with the superintendent's goals, the superintendent's evaluation, and keeping an eye on student performance, they're looking to condense and combine the duties there. Do you have negotiation subcommittees? A lot of committees still have negotiation subcommittees, and good for you if you manage to get your quorum show up and you get to have your subcommittees. Yes, 2 members or 3 members? If that's happening here with consistency, you're winning. It's a struggle for many districts. So I want to just remind you, when it comes to subcommittees, this is another struggle that's very common. A subcommittee has no work outside the charge that the full board gives it, right? I'm assuming your current subcommittees have a charge. They understand what their work is. If they don't, that's something you might want to think about, right? Policies would be another subcommittee. Sorry, I skipped right over that. Sorry. Subcommittees have essentially no work outside that initial charge, and then outside of school committee referring work to subcommittees. We hear so often how school committees, outside of policy, right, because you know if the policy is updated, you have to look at it, but it is not the responsibility of that policy subcommittee to decide or create on their own accord a new policy. and bring it back to the full board for consideration. It is the full board's authority to refer matters to subcommittee to be discussed on a closer level, right? To bring a recommendation back to the school committee for action. Oftentimes, and it's really designed that way, doesn't always occur that way, but most often, subcommittees are staffed by people with particular expertise in a particular area so that they can do that close work and bring back good recommendations to the committee. And we want to remember, because we've seen this as well, a subcommittee has no authority outside of the full committee's authority. That's through both sending work to the committee and then sending the recommendations back to the full board for final action. No questions there? We are seeing this so much lately, so I wanted to put this one in.
So can you confirm whether or not school committees are able to vote and if they are able to make decisions as a subcommittee?
Subcommittee. Well, they're able to vote on a recommendation to bring back to the full committee. It is a subquorum of the committee, which gives it no authority to make any final decisions. No, the final decisions rest with the full board. That's by law. Right. There's something else I want to say there which keeps escaping me. It'll come back. It always does. Yeah, sometimes, and I see this a lot in the smaller districts and the rural districts, but it has a place almost everywhere. Where once a subcommittee starts working, and if they don't get reminders of this, they can go astray. And it does happen, and it absolutely needs to be reeled back in, because essentially those decisions have no legal basis. Yeah. Open meeting law, everybody's favorite. I want to remind you, since we're moving on to open meeting law, I knew it would come back. Subcommittees must produce minutes that come back to the full board that contain those recommendations to be voted on. Verbal reports, if it's sort of, if it's an issue of timeliness, let's say, and finance has met an hour before the full board and something has to get acted on, it can come in as a verbal report, but those written minutes have to follow. And the open meeting law has been very clear on that, and there's been a number of determinations over the past 3 to 5 years related to subcommittees not producing minutes. So just want to remind you of that. And no, the open meeting law is not everybody's favorite. I'm just weird like that. It's my favorite. It seems to make the guidelines very clear to me. While I don't agree with the law that it helps to balance the work of government, it makes it a little more tricky sometimes to provide that transparent notice to the public, because the public has an absolute right to understand what you're talking about. I did take a look at your agenda. Items are spelled out pretty clearly. As somebody not familiar with the district on a day-to-day basis, I could understand what you're talking about. I wish that were the norm, but we're spending a lot of time with people on that as well, because that is a favorite OML determination by the AG's office. Anyone from the public should be able to look at your agenda and reasonably understand what you're going to be discussing. You must provide, of course, that advance notice, and it requires that all your deliberations are in open session, unless you have one of the usually 9 out of 10 reasons that a school committee can meet in executive session, and you've appropriately posted for that. And the public must have access. There are still many committees in rural areas that meet virtually, and they oftentimes have difficulty with internet access. And they struggle with, if somehow the internet goes down, we cannot continue the meeting. But that's what the law says, right? So we know we have to you have Erin, and she's on top of me, so I know she's on top of you. Notice must be posted with the full agenda for all meetings. That includes subcommittees. And they're open to the public. Meetings are open to the public unless it is an executive session meeting. Now, you may provide that access either virtually or in person. The choice is yours. You don't have to provide both. Many committees still do. And of course, minutes must be kept for all meetings, including subcommittees and executive session. Open meeting law is kind enough to give us some definitions of what a meeting is, but not surprisingly, with electronic modes of communication, it gets a little fuzzier. So it's a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction, and that means any oral, written, or electronic communications of public business that reaches a quorum of the public body. I'm glad to see there's no cell phones out because more and more cell phone records are being requested as public records during public meetings. When they see folks communicating via text, they wonder if they're communicating amongst the body and want to know what they're saying. So that is a gentle reminder that we all have families and sometimes we all need to access our phone. But people do watch that pretty closely. If you think so we all know we have the right to freedom of expression, and I might want to talk to Michelle about something that I have a very strong opinion on, and I believe I'm going to Michelle, and it's not going to go any further, and she believes that too. But by chance, she mentions it to Cheryl, and Cheryl says, "Oh, interesting, I better tell Sean that." We've just reached a quorum of the committee, and nobody really intended it to be that way. Now, will an open meeting law complaint ever be filed? Who knows? But why risk it is what I say. I like the guidelines of this. The allowable exclusions, which are also well defined in MGL, are distributing agendas, scheduling, or procedural housekeeping information, such as reports and that kind of thing, so long as no opinion of a member of the public body is expressed. Do you all know that school committees are the only elected public body in Massachusetts that are required to undergo training? You see a lot of open meeting law violations from select boards and others because they've never been required to have training.
You obviously saw last Thursday's paper.
I did not. But you know, I look at open meeting law determinations because I like to know what the next new story is. What do we have to watch out for next? Agendas has been a big one. If you're not spelling out for the public what you're talking about, it's a clear open meeting law violation. So we know that the public may attend. It's great that so many people are here. I think that, I think so. The public may not address the public body without permission of the chair. I'm sure you have public comment on all of your agendas, as all school committees do, because it's the wise thing to do. Public may take an audio or video recording, but the law still does require that sort of be announced by the chair. You announce before that recordings are taking place. Many chairs will ask if anyone in the audience is recording. And the reason for that is, people have real life reasons for wanting to keep their whereabouts secure, right? And so if someone in the audience knows that the neighbor sitting behind them is recording, they might want to leave the meeting. You did inform about the recording at the beginning of the meeting. So we know there's 10 reasons for executive session. I'm not going to list them all. Executive session is meant to protect the public interest. And by that I mean whatever matter that the board is deliberating on that would not be able to be effectively done if it was done in public, like negotiations, like litigation. It's allowed for screening committees, in your case for superintendent. You know that you need to open every executive session in public session. A lot of committees skip that step and they're surprised that they can't do that. So thank you for knowing that. I see your head nodding. Minutes must be taken and all votes in executive session are by roll call only. Now, social media. Gosh, isn't the world fan of social media? Does anybody have like a Sean Kennedy school committee member page? Yes. So there's been a lot of decisions about social media. The best advice we can give is to use your Facebook, Instagram, X. Is there a Bluebird one now or some? If there's a new one, I like a little bit of social media, but I don't have time for a lot. It's good to share real-time information or information on upcoming activities with your constituents. It is allowed under freedom of expression to share your opinion, but I use the words proceed with caution on this because those are the exact words of the Attorney General's office. If you share an opinion on your Facebook page that folks are going to read, that a majority of the school committee will likely read, you have essentially committed an open meeting law violation. Just be thoughtful. Along the lines of, a little bit off from social media, but sometimes school committee members are big fans of writing opinions to the local newspaper. It's your First Amendment right. I just encourage you to proceed with caution and remember again that you're coming back to the table with your colleagues to do the critical work for students in your community, right? It's hard once you've burned that bridge to rebuild it. Does anybody belong to the MASC listserv? Oh, right, you know how helpful that is. You can network with school committee members from across the Commonwealth to hear from them about how they're handling a particular topic. If they have a particular policy that you might be interested in, how that's going for them in their district. It's a great way to connect with a large number of people. Always remember here, again, not to express your opinion, but it's a great source of collecting information, meeting people of like mind, and sharing ideas.
I have a question about social media.
Yes.
So following a school committee vote, so what would your best practice guidance be from MASC regarding individual members' use of social media? For example, if if school committee members are identifying themselves as school committee members, on social media in a public forum, and soliciting direct public contact, is there any guidance surrounding that? My opinion is that an open meeting violation.
Well, they're
especially if it's something that
contact from members of the public.
Right, on a vote that's already occurred.
They must be retired and have a lot of time because I bet they get a lot of contact doing that. There's nothing that forbids that. The only way you cannot have contact is between or among the quorum of the committee. John and I were still young when we first worked together. I've done this for a long time, and I will tell you that great things happen at this table and in your schools every single day, every minute of every day, probably. This is where the magic happens in any community. But do you hear about that every single day? Is somebody complimenting you on the work you've done or on the work someone else in the district has done? Absolutely not. But the minute someone's been annoyed, you're gonna hear it. I would say, people can do what they want with that. I don't, if someone wants to reach out to me as a school committee member and talk to me, it's my obligation, I think, to hear them out, to listen, to try to understand, and if they can be referred to somebody appropriately in the district to handle their situation, which is not me and not the school committee, that's my function. That's the best practice.
So I think I'm referring to after a vote, if the school committee votes and the vote doesn't go your way.
Oh,
Yes. And so then, just, I guess
Sorry.
I'm looking for guidance on how that should be handled on social media. And
So-
if there's any,
that's similar to writing a letter to the editor, right? I get it, I didn't get my way, I might not be happy, but once the vote is taken, essentially, what's the point of asking for input? Are you gonna come back to your board? Under, you know, well, I guess there are a few exceptions where you could come back and ask for reconsideration. There can't be much time in between. And I guess, I don't think I'm too mindful about this. I think it's important to work well with the people we work with. Again, this is not flipping burgers at Burger King, right? This is doing the important work that your community has elected you to do. We will not always agree. That's one thing that's guaranteed. It is best to take a step back, be thoughtful, sleep on it. You know, if you want to have opinions, there should probably be a good idea of where you want to go with that once you have them, and if there is an avenue to go anywhere with it when you have them. Or is it just creating something that's going to be sensitive at the board table, right? It's like living your life. Where do you really want to stir the pot, in my humble opinion? Because people, as I said a moment ago, are always happy to let you know when they're unhappy. But what about the people who never speak up? Times about 1,000 that are thrilled with things that are going on, right? You're just not hearing from them. You're soliciting opinions from somebody who essentially agrees with you, right?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And this is not based on anything that's ever happened or anything like that. It's just each year that we talk with you, I'm really trying to refine my knowledge of the open meeting law. So let's say a minority of the school committee, not a quorum, goes to a meeting, and maybe they might be a quorum of a subcommittee or something like that, and they are represented as speaking on behalf of the school committee. Is that an open meeting law violation, or is that just some school committee members talking about the school committee
There's a
stuff?
few things happening there.
Mm-hmm.
So you are only speaking on behalf of the school committee if the school committee authorizes you to do so through a vote. If you're a finance subcommittee and you're going to select board, for example, because you anticipate that there's going to be back and forth, give and take, post it if there's a quorum. If you are usually select boards, I know in smaller communities they like to see school committee members. Best practice would be to allow the superintendent and or the business manager to present and stay away from any back and forth. But if you know that that's the purpose of the meeting, absolutely post it. Yes. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
is it an open meeting violation if both parties don't, if both members from that subcommittee do not speak?
No. So you may attend any properly posted meeting of any public body, so long as you do not deliberate. The whole committee could attend. And, by the way, town meeting is exempt from the open meeting law. So if you go to town meeting here,
Yeah.
If you go to town meeting and sit together and there's reason for you to deliberate on an amendment to a warrant article, for example, you are allowed to do so, and that's the only place you're exempted from it.
Michelle brings up a great point. I like that. If one person speaks and has a back and forth and there are other members present, isn't that an open meeting law violation because they're sharing?
I think that if you get to the point that you're deliberating, if you're providing factual information and there's no give and take, no. And if you start to cross the line where you're asked, well, what do you think if, that's where the red flags go up, right? It's not what I think, it's what the committee thinks, right? I can share any information you want that I have and can share with you, but that's where it ends.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone was asked to attend, for instance, a select board meeting, to be available to answer factual questions
Mm-hmm.
on some topic,
Mm-hmm.
there would be no concern.
You know, I think that it's always collegial to let it is always collegial to let the chair know that you've had that invitation, and to consider whether or not, for example, maybe a member of administration should be there with actual documentation. Right?
Sounds a lot like exactly what happened.
Yeah. Good. Done it right. So I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to read MASC's Code of Ethics. I'm going to give you the condensed version. As a member, you stand alone. You have authority within the body, as we've said. You're responsible to the community. You're responsible to work well with the district administration. And you're responsible to be, fair to say, an ethical, responsible member of the committee. You realize that your primary responsibility at all times is to the students in this district. Recognize that your basic function is policy making and never administrative. You have a great team to do that for you. The team must abide by and carry out all committee decisions once they are made. Very few exceptions, and not easy to bring something back to the committee. Not a parliamentarian, but my Robert's Rules of Order has at least 157 colored tabs in it. So now when I need to go back and figure out the answer to something, it's at least a little easier. You need to be, and the law says that you need to be, informed concerning the duties of a committee member on both the local, on the local level and state level. And this is by way of training. Again, the only publicly elected board that is mandated by law to receive 8 hours of training in their first year of service. And you remember some, I'm not sure how it's done here, but I would guess that you're all at-large members, and you are representing the entire community at all times. We all do have passions, we're committed to certain things, but we need to remember that we sit on this board, we're elected to sit on the board to do what's best for all students. All students. And of course, we accept the office as a committee member as a means of unselfish service with no intent to play politics. I know what that means, but I don't know who has time to do that in their lives. Maybe some people do, in any sense of the word. Or to benefit personally. You're in ethics violation and can be fined real money if you benefit personally from committee activities. Does get a little repetitive, but you have no position that is beyond that of a member of the committee outside of this type of a meeting, posted for specific reasons. regardless of who you are in the community or why you're involved in a school activity or any other activity outside of the schools, people likely see you first as a school committee member and then acknowledge you perhaps as a person. I spend a lot of time bringing my oldest grandchild back and forth to school. They see me a lot. I'm on the school committee. I'm always very clear. Please, I'm just grandma in this situation. And that's how I'm talking to you, and that's how I want you to respond to me. I'm nothing else. And even then, they still see me as a school committee member. It's a small community, right? So I have to continually remind folks, I'm only here for one purpose, and that's the little one that I'm dragging behind me or pushing in front of me. We will get calls, we do get calls from people in the community who have had a problem, typically with their child. They want someone to fix it, and that someone is you, and that's why they're calling you. It is a clear violation of ethics if you intervene on behalf of anyone other than your own child, and you must always do so as parent, guardian, grandparent, never as school committee member. It's a clear violation of ethics, and should that ever get to the Ethics Commission, it is real money that it will cost you, as well as having your name splashed in the paper. When I was in Hatfield, many folks, we had some turnover in our special ed leadership. Many folks wanted help with IEPs. Will you come to the IEP meeting with me? Absolutely not. Because anyone at that IEP meeting is going to see me as Liz LaFawn, school committee member. That is an ethics violation. If a person is having difficulty in any way in the schools, please refer them back to the chain of command. Have you talked to the teacher? Yeah, I didn't get anywhere. Did you go to the principal? Well, no, the principal is just going to support the teacher. Well, here's the chain of command. Go to the principal. Go to the special ed director. Then, then you move up the ladder to assistant superintendent, what happened here in Hampton, Wilbraham. Critically important that you do that. We do endeavor to establish sound and clearly defined policies, and we're always delighted when Jesse conducts a review and reminds us that there's some new policy that they want us to create. Sorry about that. I just had a couple calls about that today, but district review teams decide that we need new policies, and I'm not quite sure how that happens, but we endeavor to find out from Bessie what the real story is. We recognize and support, as much as we might want to try to intervene, we support that chain of command and refuse to act on complaints as an individual. We give up the chief administrator full responsibility for discharging their duties in a professional way. And we gauge how those duties are being performed and discharged in the evaluation process, right? All complaints go back to administrative staff, as I just explained, for solution. And there are very few issues that still can legally come before the school committee for decision. There could be a couple, and you're likely, I'll bet it's been a very long time since you've had anything come to your level, because it's typically easier to find a solution along the way, right? We're all here for the same work, and that's for students. And I'm sure that if your administration can find a workable solution, that's what they want to do as well. Well, I do get ahead of myself, don't I? So if there's a need, some way, for you to work with administration to get appropriate information out to the community, something's happening, something's bubbling, you want to know how you can be best informed and how you can help if you're approached, work with administration on that, right? And there's your buckets again. Stay, I hate this saying, but as much as I hate it, it fits here, stay in your lane. The law prescribes your work. Policy, budget, goals, and evaluation. That's what you're legally charged with. We talked about this early on, and I know you've heard it a lot of times, so I'm going to be quick here. Anything that happens in this district only happens through a publicly posted meeting by a quorum of this school committee making a decision. Never make promises or statements on how you're going to vote on something. And I learned this early on as a school committee member who thought, oh, I know what a school committee member's role is. I get this. I've read this information. You're right. I know how I'm going to vote. This is how I'm going to vote. I tell people in the community, only to find out that I get to the table and get fresh information that wasn't included in the packet. That made great sense. Now my vote flipped. I had to explain to everybody why I didn't vote the way I said I was going to vote. That's why you come to the table to deliberate. Please, please, please uphold the intent of executive session. It is way too common that things that happen in executive session leak out. It doesn't help the committee's position in bargaining or strategy or litigation, and it tends to crumble trust in what you're doing out in the community, right? Don't withhold any pertinent information from the committee in making a vote. If you think, oh, this vote's going to go my way, I bet if they knew, they'd think something else. Don't withhold any pertinent information on matters before the board. It's important. It's critical. It's for all of the students in this district all the time. Oops. I get a little clicky with these things. I'm surprised I made it that far. And make these decisions, again, this is a reason that it's not done in subcommittee. Decisions are only made after all the facts on a particular question have been thoroughly deliberated and discussed, right? That's why it has the opportunity to come back to full board for final action. It's not easy sometimes to swallow that you're in the minority position. I've been there. But it's the only way you're going to come back and work effectively with your colleagues. I believe in that. Stay on task, be prepared, respect the chair, defer to the chair who's running the meeting, and redirect as necessary. If you get way off topic, and you want to raise a point of order, we're way off topic, it's always completely appropriate to do so. These are business meetings, essentially, right? You're conducting the business of the school district. And share information that you have. It's a good thing that you share information that you have with committee members. Just do so without expressing your opinion, please. Have I come to the end and there's no question slide? Look at that, I've come to the end. I have pared it down. Does anybody have any specific questions? And if you come up with specific questions after, I'm always available for a phone call, text, or email. This is why we exist. Yes?
I have a question, not that it has anything to do with the storm codes. The obligations in terms of canceling a publicly posted meeting, it can be done at any time?
Yes. It can be done at any time.
Because it came up for discussion in the evening, so I was like, should I just tell her not to post? And I said, well, go ahead and post and we'll play it by ear. So
I've heard an interesting question/solution to that today that I want to share with you.
yeah,
A committee posted a meeting to be in person with a Zoom link with clear direction that if school is canceled, the meeting would not be in person, it would be held virtually. This is how you will access it. Hadn't heard that one before, but it certainly does work, especially if it's a matter that's very timely, right? And you can't wait, to reschedule another meeting.
If I remember correctly, before COVID, we couldn't do that. We had to have a quorum in person.
Well, yeah,
But I
but
know
now
it
with
was was suspended, but I don't know if it was suspended indefinitely. Is that something?
Suspended now until June 30th, 2027.
Okay,
The emergency procedures, as they're so called.
right.
I had that question today too, where someone was told, no, we can't have a meeting, it's a subcommittee. And it was posted as hybrid. No, we can't have a meeting if only the chair is present and the 2 other members are hybrid. And I said, of course you can. As long as somebody is there, according to the new quote, emergency regulations, I just wish they'd make it permanent, so much easier. As long as the person chairing the meeting doesn't necessarily have to be the chair, but whoever's present has to be designated as the chair for that purpose of that particular meeting. And you've posted as a hybrid already, yeah.
I didn't know that they had still.
This really is something that makes it more efficient to do the business of elected bodies. I'm a big fan of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Nice to see you.
Please do call if you have anything.
Thank you. So we will continue with old business. The Booster Club update, we have Steve Burnett.
Good evening, everybody. With me, I also have Karen Horn, who's a member of the Falcon Athletic Booster Association. She's the current treasurer. I know there's a memo in the packet, so just presenting tonight to express the district's sincere gratitude to all past and present members of the Falcon Athletic Booster Association for their unwavering commitment to Minnechaug athletics. The dedication and generosity demonstrated by the organization has directly enhanced the experiences and opportunities available for all of our student athletes. These contributions reflect a genuine commitment to excellence in our community and partnership. Before I go through the item lines requesting approval for donations, I just want to personally thank all of the members of the Falcon Athletic Booster Association. They've done a lot behind the scenes for us, fundraising, donations, just a lot of things that help subsidize the athletic program here at Minnechaug. Like I said, once again with me tonight is the treasurer, Karen Horn. Members not in attendance tonight, Mike Stakowitz, Carrie Lee, Kathy Stacio, Jason Weber, Michelle DeFonseca, and Joe Holden. So I just want to acknowledge all of their help and their generosity and their support that they've done for such a high-paying position that they put in. Moving forward, looking for 4 different approvals of donation for January of 2026. The first one, looking for approval, is a golf cart that the Booster Club has graciously paid and donated for, up to $11,250 for a new athletic training cart. And the purpose of this cart is just multi-purpose for our trainer. It helps with weather, medical supplies, equipment. The capacity is what you need to be a successful athletic trainer to help our students, whether it's carrying medical supplies and the appropriate things, or now that has the availability to transport kids off the fields. Whereas the original golf cart that's over 20 years old is a 4-seater that rattles on slightest rock. So it's a lot safer, it's more stable, and that was 100% funded by the Booster Club for the golf cart. Moving forward, the next one is Booster Club has generously donated 100% out of their account for a total of $6,200 to help offset with the difficulty of transportation this past fall for fall athletics. It's a little bit more anticipated than past years based on the lack of drivers that we are originally not anticipating at the start of the fall season. And we had to do a quick change up in terms of outsourcing a lot more this year than we have in the past. This year alone, we had to outsource 18 different away contests in terms of whether it was coach bus companies, other yellow bus companies, whatever was made available for us kind of within the week of the change. We had to cancel multiple lower level games due to zero availability. And I had to reschedule over 39 away contests to move back times or move dates to accommodate what that could accommodate for us, but not every school can move days and times and venues at call or at request. So the Booster Club has donated $6,200 to help offset the fall transportation budget. Coming in this week, our pool equipment, it's 15 years old. The panels and the touchpads are in dire need of replacement. The estimated cost for the overall pool pad replacement is $8,000. Booster Club is donating $3,000 to help offset the cost of the pool pad replacements. $1,500 coming directly from the Booster Club, and $1,500 coming from the swim fundraising account, is within the Booster Club. And our last request for approval is the volleyball programs. A donation from Booster Club and the volleyball programs for a service machine, which kind of helps the volleyball programs just enhance their skills. It's a lot less movement for the coach. He can now actually instruct rather than just serve ball after ball after ball over the net and not be able to pause and give those coachable moments to our student athletes. With the total donations for this month of just under $25,000, these contributions demonstrate strong community support for Minnechaug athletics. They address critical needs in transportation, medical services, facility maintenance, and equipment. And just looking for the school committee's approval of these donations from the Falcon Athletic Booster Association.
I make a motion to accept these donations, these 4 donations as presented in this document.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a question for you. On the fall transportation support,
Yep.
6,200, very generous, thank you. What was the full cost in 2025 of the fall transportation?
I can look that up and get back to you on that.
Do you have any idea like what percentage the 6,200 is of that?
So I calculated the 18 transportation the transportation that Liftback could not accommodate. I calculated the 18 trips that we used out of here, and I did we covered 66%, they covered a 33% type of donation.
Can I ask a clarifying question on the answer you just gave? So are you saying that the impact of LPVEC not being able to provide transportation for your teams was about $18,000 for the fall, since that would be 3 times the amount of the donation?
I'd have to look back, but roughly, yes. Even with outside yellow bus companies, you're looking at least quadruple the price of what LPVEC would accommodate. When they're available, they're great. The cost is super low. Going into this school year, it was understood that it would be 245 bus departures. We were able to accommodate that the first week and a half, and then based on the lack of bus drivers available, we then had to pivot in the middle of the season to 4 o'clock or later bus departures, and that's 40 different contests that we had to change as best as possible. Unfortunately, other schools don't have lighting like we do. Other schools don't have turf like we do. So in the past, I was aware of it well in advance to move dates around when we could. This year was just kind of an anomaly based on what we thought and what ended up occurring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will vote. So we will do roll call. Any other questions? Okay. Cheryl? Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Rich? Okay, and myself, yes. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the Assistant Superintendent for Finance Operations and Human Resources. Doug?
Good evening, everyone. So I'll begin with a correction. So the very first page in this section of your packet materials has some errors on it, and so I've given you new copies of that first page. So you should have all of those, and those can replace that in your electronic version of the packet. I've already uploaded an updated version of this. When I added the note at the bottom right-hand corner on this first page, it had a cascading effect that influenced the numbers, but it really only affected that lower section where we talk about the assessments to the towns and the percentage increases. So that's been corrected on this new version that I've handed out this evening. So with that, apologies for that error, but let me just walk you through a few things relative to the budget, and I will talk about both capital as well as operating and debt. First, we'll talk operating and debt. They're together here on this sheet that I just handed out to you. It's still very early in the process. There's a number of things that haven't come in as information for us yet, so there's a number of assumptions we make. I'll walk through those. And so first and foremost is, the governor's budget has not been released as yet. So we don't have a baseline of what we think Chapter 70 support is going to be for our district. I made an assumption of us remaining as a hold harmless district, and so our increase per student being $100. Statute says 30. Last year when the governor's budget was released in late January, she had placed $75 per student. It ended up being $150 per student when the legislature finished their process. Given that and the strong movement and consideration of changes to Chapter 70 formula that they're working on in the legislature, I felt confident we could put $100 in as a reasonable starting place. We'll see. The governor's budget will be released in the next week or so, and we'll get a sense of what that is. Hopefully, the governor might put in something more like 125 or 150 or something else. If that's the case, we'll make a correction and it'll have an impact on our bottom line. Other assumptions that I have to make are relative to that have major impact. I mean, as we know, the contracts with our two largest unions are not yet settled, and so I made approximations of what I think will happen relative to negotiations. Of course, we'll finish that process and finalize those numbers based on that. We're making estimates relative to what we think is going to happen with our health insurance. The trend nationally for health insurance has been pretty strong increases, double-digit type increases in most insurance plans. Ours, we belong to the Scantic Valley Regional Health Trust, which is ourselves and a few communities are partners in a group that purchase insurance products. Trust, it then pays out the bills as they come in. There's a level of funding that we try to retain within the balance of that trust. That balance has been higher than our standard for the last couple of years, and so the members have voted to take more moderate approaches to increase the health insurance in order to use that resource that's on hand. So, for example, 2 years ago, we had 0% increase in our health insurance because there was enough balance in the bank of that trust to be able to essentially accommodate the needs. For the current year, we went with a 4% increase. If we had not had that resource sitting in the trust, the increase for insurance for the current year would have been, I believe, about 12%. Certainly communities around us have had much more significant and impactful budget increases due to their health insurance and other insurance increases. The trends in insurance are continuing to be fairly high. What I've done in projecting for this is to project a 13% increase. I'm hopeful that we may, when we meet in early February and get, and make a decision about where we're going to go, that the current performance of the trust, as well as our own health trends and insurance trends, are such that we will be able to take it 13% or hopefully something less. It's a general rule of thumb. 1 percentage point of insurance increase is about a $68,000 to $70,000 sort of increase or decrease. So if it comes in at 10% versus 13%, that's $210,000 of lowered costs, but at present, that's a pretty significant driver of our budget costs. Let me see if I have other things I want to make sure to mention to you. We're going to hold at present, the entitlement grants that we have, and as you look at the section in the middle of the page that has our offsets, we're holding those fairly steady across the year.
Excuse me, can we put this up on the screen? Because we have a lot of people here that don't really understand what we're talking about.
I didn't send it to you, but it's in the electronic.
It looks like the file in the shared drive has the correct number. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that.
It's not the one that says do not use. It has a B2 at the end for version 2. While she brings that up, I'll sort of continue. So our offsets, which are things, like school choice revenues, circuit breaker funding, other grants and revolving funds that we have, we're holding fairly steady across the board. Our anticipation of those resources to help us out are holding fairly steady. There are a few that are potentially going to drop a little bit, some that may increase, but most of them are holding fairly steady in a year-over-year sort of basis. And so I think that I'll wait till she gets that in front of us a little bit, and I'll. Yeah, that's a little too big. Yes, that's a little too big. So this is in some ways very similar to what you've seen in past years, but it is a little different in some ways. One thing that we've done is pull out benefits and insurances into its own line, mostly because it's a fairly large component of what was formerly the district-wide support. So it was in the district-wide support. We pull benefits out into its own section, so you can sort of see the impact of things like a 13% projection for health insurance increases. And you can see from a year-over-year standpoint that the increase in benefits and insurances is over $1 million. If you were to look at our total increase in our budget, it's roughly $4 million. So our insurance alone is roughly a quarter of the increase in our cost overall. And this is factoring in that we've got staff that are getting steps and COLAs that we're projecting. Other inflationary pressures that we have there, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a pretty profound impact on our budget and a driver of our increases in costs. The second thing I'll point out. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. The page numbering won't. There you go. So the one other thing I'll point out is in the section that has our revenue. So the state defines revenue specifically. So things like transportation reimbursement, Medicaid funding, interest revenue, and E&D are all considered revenue sources, as well as the Chapter 70 and of course the assessments from the member communities. One thing I'll point out here is our prior year E&D is being reduced by about $500,000 from what we used this year. We used a pretty significant amount of E&D to support the budget this year. We don't have as much resource as we had. And so, I've put in a placeholder of $700,000 of E&D support to the budgets, but that's another $500,000 or about 10, 11% of the increase is driven by that change as well. So those two pieces, the insurances and the change in our E&D are pretty strong drivers of what's happening to our overall cost increase in our budget from the current year to next year as we project forward. And of course, you know, the impact on our communities, because, you know, as you look at those sources of revenue, those percentage increases are modest. They're, you know, 4%, 6%. Our overall budget's going up 7-ish% as we have it projected right now. If your sources of revenue are going up less than that, then more burden is going to be placed on the local communities to provide the resources through assessment. And so, you know, it's the conundrum that most school districts in the Commonwealth are in relative to what Chapter 70 is doing, what other kind of supports from a federal level are happening or not happening, and sort of impact of inflationary pressures like health insurance and the like are having on our budgets. I will caution there's a lot of aspects of this that are still early stages. We'll know more as we go along. This is a level services budget, so essentially taking all the staff and all the programming and all the kind of planning and materials that we use currently, projecting that forward as best we know it. We have received, you know, some information from our retirement board in Hampden County. So Hampden County Retirement is the retirement board for all our non-teaching and administrative staff that pay, they pay into MTRS. Everybody else that has a retirement pays into Hampden County. They have given us the official assessment for us. The good news there is it is very modest in its increase. Last year it went up 12.7%. This year it's only going up about 2.4%. So that was a very welcome bit of news from them that's set in place. We do pay that bill in its entirety in July, which saves us about 2%. So that's, we generally have the cash flow to be able to do that and take on that, but that's in place as we speak. And so it's good to have that piece of information in place, but a number of other things are still, you know, to be determined. So like I said, the governor's budget will come out, I believe, next week at the latest. The first week of February, I believe it's the 3rd, the regional trust is meeting, and we'll make a determination about what is necessary to fund our health insurance trust fund and maintain a healthy balance, but also cover the costs. For the coming years, those will have a major impact in what this looks like. So when we come to February, to the end of February, we'll have a second version of this. Will be much more clear in where we are with regard to how our budget's shaping up. The other thing I'll point out is at the bottom of this, I have a small little bit for regional capital. When I spoke with the subcommittee in December, I had about $940,000 in regional capital requests. Partly by virtue of some changes, and we heard about a little bit of it tonight. We had a project on that had to do with the pool and the timers and a scoreboard. We pulled that off of the capital plan. That's one of the big changes from previously. There are some other changes. The capital plan is still also in early phases. I'll get into that in just a second, but I did want to point out that's gone down. It'll probably need to go down some more in order to meet the capacity of the communities. Both communities in meeting with the subcommittee on Tuesday night, but also in meetings we've gone to at the communities themselves have given us guidance that it's going to be a challenging year for them from the standpoint of increases to budgets. You know, Hampden and Wilbraham have both indicated that the pressures that we're experiencing with health insurance and everything else are, you know, theirs as well, and so it's going to be a real challenge for them to have a significant increase in assessments. So I think I'll pause there for a second and see if there are questions specifically about operating and debt, and then I'll talk to capital in just a moment. But does anyone have a question about what we're seeing on this page?
So I just want to point out, kind of on an overview, or maybe if people couldn't read on the board, that right now where we stand, we're looking at a $4 million increase to the school budget this year. That'll be $960,000 increase for Hampden and a $3 million change increase for Wilbraham. You know, that's a 10% increase from last year for Hampden, and it's a 9.6% increase for Wilbraham, which At our meeting Monday night, both towns gave us an indication that that's not anywhere near a reachable number for them. Certainly not without a big 2.5 override. That was the information they shared with us, but I'm optimistic. Doug's all over the numbers, and you know, we have a few things that are moving targets. So, very concerning picture.
Along those lines, you know, you're pointing out two lines that are kind of important takeaway headline lines from.
That's right where the towns go.
From tonight's meeting. There are two others that occurred to me, and I was talking with Doug about this earlier today. And I think it's important just for the public to understand, you know, the challenges that we're facing in creating this budget. And those are the benefits and insurances line item that Doug talked about, 1.1 million, and reduced E&D that he talked about of $500,000, which means, you know, before we pay for anything, it's 1.6 million more. You know, that's before we pay a single electric bill, salary, anything. That's kind of baked into the pie right now, based on assumptions. Maybe the assumptions won't turn out that bad. We'll see, but that's what we're looking at right now.
When it says here on the bottom right on the note that budgetary offsets have not been applied to FY27, you mean in the following pages?
Yeah, so
they are applied to the assessment to the towns, correct?
Yes. So when I say budgetary offsets, so typically what happens is with things like school choice and circuit breaker and that sort of thing, those get applied directly to particular lines within our budget. The other 66 pages of this document are all those lines, and what people will probably notice is when they look at certain lines, there's these huge increases in certain areas, and so what I've done with regard to that is go through and try to tag those with a little bit of color to indicate that that's probably going to be a little bit lower once we apply an offset. So an example of that, health insurance is an example of that, because if you look at the particular line for health insurance in the line by line, it goes up a really large number, and the health insurance includes more than just, you know, the health insurance that you think of at 13%. There are some other pieces to that puzzle, but nonetheless, you know, some things have sort of spikes like that. You'll see that a lot. We use a lot of our IDEA grant money to support paraeducator salaries. So a lot of those, you know, paraeducator salaries, you know, look like there's this giant jump in our cost. And so some of that's the natural occurrence of steps and COLAs and that sort of thing, and some of it's also because, you know, we do support a number of those through grant funding. So I tried to, in the line by line, try to highlight those places where we leverage some of these offsets. I didn't get specific at that point, but if you're looking at like 26 versus 27 as you go through, some of those sort of strong upticks in cost are often because there's an offset that needs to get applied. There are cases, though, where we just have, you know, a pretty strong need to increase the funding as it currently, you know, exists. And I've continued to go through and look for, you know, there are budget lines that we funded for years that we're not using, so we can zero those out and leverage those into places where we've underfunded, so we can kind of have the budget lines try to reflect as closely as we can where we're actually going to spend the resources, so the community has a sense of what we're spending our resources on.
As this is now a public document, can we put this up on the website so that members of the community can view it?
Yeah, we will, for sure. The corrected one.
Yeah, the corrected one. When you sent it out again, did you send it as an Excel or as a PDF?
PDF.
Could you send me the Excel? I can. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, sort of, you know, what was problematic was some of the tallying of the fiscal 26 that would make the percentage increase in like assessment off. That's what's gotten better on this page. If you're looking in the line by line in your book, you'll see text where there should be numbers in a few places, and so that's been corrected. So switching to capital, there's a 6-page document here. I don't think I'll display that because I think it's a little more detailed than you may want to see on the big board with a number of things. But I think what I'll orient people to relative to that document is it's still a work in process. We're still, you know, working to get better numbers, thinking about priorities, again, our total set of asks, both of, from a regional standpoint, as well as specific to each community for their buildings that they own, are still in process. We're still, working through and getting better estimates of cost. We have some of those, but there's more refinement in some of those areas. One of the things I've also done in this is tried to highlight, capital requests that are funded by alternate sources besides just the town's funds. So if we're utilizing grants or gifts or Community Preservation Act funds, or we're attempting to use those funds, or we're using E-rate, which is a funding source, from the federal government that helps offset some of our cost of technology. We try to highlight those different colors to indicate that we're getting some support to reduce the total cost, and they ask directly to the communities for that. The one thing I will ask for the committee's recommendation or guidance on is specifically related to the seating at the football field. We've had a lot of conversation about that. The number that is in there, I placed in fiscal 28 instead of 27, but I did that partly because in having conversations, thinking about whether we should break that into a two-part process, one of evaluation and design, and then one of actual implementation of change. But I would like the guidance of the committee relative to whether that's the way you'd like to split it up, or if you want me to move it into 27 and ask for the full amount. There's been some recommendations that there might be CPA funding available to support that. My understanding of CPA is it's not, but I'm going to have a conversation with the Wilbraham CPA chair. Reached out to me, returned her call. We'll talk to her tomorrow and sort of lay out the project, and then she can consult with the statewide organization about the eligibility or what kinds of things might be eligible. So CPA might be a source of funds for that. Any and all other donations or gifts are welcome to be sent to the district for the purposes of supporting that. But I did want some guidance from the committee about that. In this capital plan, what I've done there is we had an estimate from May of 24 to replace the bleacher seating there, and it was an estimate just shy of $1.4 million to do that. Obviously, some things have changed, tariffs, regular inflation, that sort of thing. So I boosted up that price to in the $1.8 million range, just to, obviously that's an area where we could go back and have some design work done and some costing done as a first step, if that's what the committee would like to do, or we can just take on the project as a whole and do some preliminary phone call type quotations from vendors to see if we can get a number that we can defend to the broader communities as we ask for that. But any feedback you'd like to give me relative to that would be most welcome. I think the one other thing I'll want to make sure to mention in particular is talking about the middle school. Number of capital projects there, again, refined that really recently, given some conversations. There are some needs that are, sort of immediate relative to some flooring issues that we have at that building. It was made known to me recently, in the last couple of months, that we have some existing capital appropriation that we can utilize. It seems like it will be a sufficient amount to do the most immediate work. So we don't need to make an ask in for this coming fiscal year cycle for funding for that flooring at the middle school. However, there are some modest HVAC type improvements that we're looking to do. One of which is some improved sensors and monitoring systems that will control things a little bit more closely, monitor community air quality a little bit more carefully, and put some automation in place that isn't currently. I think there's also opportunity for some of the dehumidification process, which is now done by just standalone units that have to be emptied regularly. I think we can modify those to be more automated. In other words, we can place them in the rooms against the exterior wall, have them be such that they drain, through a small penetration to the outside, be able to drain without having to have staff come and empty them every 12 hours. And that'll help make them more efficient and more effective in humidity control. So those projects are ongoing. I think we'd like to do a couple doors, and in future years we'll do some more work as we try to keep that building functional for us. At more recent meetings, and with feedback from both select boards relative to the middle school, we're going to take our current accelerated repair program opportunity and politely decline that for the purpose of applying through the statement of interest for the core program. And then we'll do a much deeper evaluation of the building and its needs and what is the next best steps for the district. So as you look at the plan, you'll see some of those things and those requests for those large capital investments in buildings, whether it be roofs and doors and windows, or in the case of middle school, a much more wholesale investment in modifications or updates or changing the building altogether.
Just a quick one here, back to the stadium seating.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take the word stadium out of there and just put the seating replacement?
Yeah.
Because there are certain laws where it says that monies can't go towards stadiums, and putting the stadium in front of that, even though it's just the seating around the football field, it would just help out a lot. We've asked this before, please make sure it's done.
Yeah.
The other thing is, a teacher in the district, friend of the committee, Christine Goonan, did have a conversation with Angela Popolo, and she turned that conversation over to me. I have talked with Angelo Popolo. He said that he would be willing to bring this to the state to see if they can, I mean, in a dream world, fund the whole thing, or at least fund something from it to help us on this journey to replace those seating. So if you can get that information to me, or if you can send it over to Angelo's office yourself, however it works. But the sooner we can do that, the better. I think any little bit that we can get outside of our own budgets and outside of the towns, I think would be amazing, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else for Doug? All right, thank you so much. So now it's time for public comment. Thank you so much for being here and for sitting through our meeting. We appreciate it. So it is now time for public comment. We will call on those who have signed up for public comment. We do ask that when called, each person state their name and their affiliation with the district. And if you could sit at the designated location right at the end of the table, and please make sure that you press the green button so that everyone can hear you. And if you have anything to share with the school committee, Aaron can take it for you. And we do ask that you speak for no more than 2 minutes, and Lisa will be keeping time.
It's awkward to keep time, so just look at me and I'll go like this.
So the button's not actually green. It's on the base there. If you press it, it turns green.
Good evening. My name is Rosemary Lee. I reside in Hamden. Also, I am an inclusion paraprofessional at Stony Hill School with 25 years of dedicated service in the district. How many of you have had a favorite teacher? I was lucky to have several. Look around you. Look around this room. This room is filled with our children's favorite teachers. Teachers are mentors. They shape our children's minds. They are people our children look up to and confide in. Teachers are professionals. Teachers shouldn't have to beg for raises. Treat them as professionals. Pay them a competitive salary. In the last few years, more responsibilities have been added on to paraprofessionals in the district. We sub for teachers due to a shortage of substitutes. I don't mind subbing for the teachers I work with directly under. Then I can still keep an eye on the students I oversee with IEPs. However, it is very difficult to catch our students up that we provide services to when we sub for other teachers. In addition to that, paras are covering teachers for CPT, staff, and IEP meetings. We support teachers and students by providing instruction, mentoring behavior, working one-to-one with students, or with small groups, especially those with IEPs. We reinforce lessons, help manage classrooms. We ensure a positive, effective learning environment. We work under the supervision of professional teachers, extending the teacher's reach, helping all students access learning. Paraprofessionals shouldn't have to beg for raises. Treat us better. Pay us a competitive salary. 200 days without a contract. HWRSD School Committee, do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Sheila Franklin. This is my 23rd year teaching in the district. I'm a flexible teacher who has taught at 2 schools, Wilbraham Middle School and here at the high school. The majority of my time has been here at the high school, and here I've taught in 2 different departments. I'm very flexible, frequently accommodating our scheduling needs here at the high school so that our students can take their chosen language, or so that I can help reduce class sizes in the English department. I have been asked to read something prepared for us. Since January 5th, educators have been participating in Work to Rule, pausing the additional and unpaid work that we do. Teachers often dedicate countless unpaid hours beyond regular classroom duties and hours. The purpose of Work to Rule is to draw more focused attention to our workload and all the unpaid work we do. This statement more concretely identifies that work. Our commitment to fostering a rich learning environment includes giving time to various clubs and activities without pay. For instance, the robotics club at the middle school requires 3 to 4 hours at the year's start, with additional hours later for coordination and paperwork. Events like the 4th grade state fair, the 5th grade science showcase, and the high school poetry out loud competition also demand extra time for planning and organization. Committees focused on safety and climate in all buildings, PTO meetings, as well as institutional review board for AP research, and the Faculty Council for the National Honor Society demand monthly and annual commitments that further add to their workload. Large-scale events like the Holiday Craft Fair, which involves extensive preparations throughout the year, easily take 10 hours or more, while music festivals and showcases throughout the year can require upwards of 20 hours combined for each music educator. These music events are great for students and provide excellent publicity for the HWRSD musical program. At each school, PE teachers invest upward of 20 hours in the planning, coordination, and implementation of field day events. Other unpaid clubs and events include the Women in STEM Club, American Cancer Society Club, the Asian Culture Club, monthly candlelight concerts for students to showcase their talents, and preparing for field trips. In addition to all this, teachers regularly write letters of recommendation and engage in community-focused events like the High School Evening of Recognition and graduation. The High School Awards Committee is completely volunteer and meets 2 to 3 times during the year to award a significant amount of scholarship money to our students to assist them with higher education costs. The Graduation Vocal Committee, as well as the Graduation Speech Committee, are voluntary as well. These collective efforts help to shape the graduation ceremony, which is enjoyed by literally hundreds of families. On the lighter side, the annual staff versus seniors basketball game is a highlight for many. Even less visible are the many conversations educators have with students before and after school that help students feel connected to adults and navigate their own lives. In middle school especially, many teachers allow students into classrooms during lunch or prep times when a quiet, safe, and less overwhelming space is needed. Anxiety and other unpredictable social and emotional needs do not follow contracted hours, and for some students, access to trusted adults is critical in the outcome of situations as well as the student's immediate well-being and long-term success. All these commitments, often unnoticed, showcase the profound dedication educators have towards enriching student experience and community life, underscoring the need for recognition and support for contracts that gives them the means to maintain their own family life.
sure that you know when your time's up. Thank you.
Good evening.
Push the button on the bottom. The light should turn green. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very glad to speak as we all have school tomorrow. So, good evening. My name is Irene Chen, and I'm currently a senior at Minnechaug. And fun fact, I just drove 3.5 hours from my NYU tour just to come for my 2-minute speech. So, I hope this alone shows how deeply I care about this issue. And over there, they can raise their hand. We have some of my peers who are also present tonight and exercising our civil rights. So, thank you, Ms. Pitcher. As a student, I want to emphasize on how much our teachers do for us. Often, it's far beyond what's required of them, and just giving some examples. Before the schedule change, Mr. Lab will arrive to school as early as 6:30 in the morning to help students one-on-one. Ms. Miracle, the only calculus teacher in the school, stays around 4:30 p.m. on extra help days until Mr. Reno has to ask everyone to leave. As I am part of a self-formed band with 2 other students, Mr. Ingram, who consistently stays after school to support us with music, even though it's not school related. And Ms. Raffaelli, our Asian Culture Club advisor, paid out of her own pockets for our Lunar New Year decoration so our students could feel celebrated and felt represented by their culture. And there's so much more that are unmentioned. These are actions that reflect a pattern of dedication, care, and commitment that defines our teachers at both Minnechaug and all of HWRC. And like Ms. Miracle said, you'll never find another group of teachers that care so much for their students. And once again, we as the students of Minnechaug and all of HWRC ask you to truly acknowledge what our teachers do every single day and show where it matters most by settling a fair contract. You mentioned about student outcome, and we're here today to show you that these amazing teachers are the works of our teachers throughout every school through the HWRC district. And by supporting our teacher is not optional, is an investment in the student and also the future of this community. Thank you very much.
Good evening, my name is Layla Hosnander, and I'm here on behalf of the teachers. I was a student at Minnechaug, and I'm also the daughter of a teacher, so that's why I'm here. Okay. Before I start, I would actually like to mention and remind the public and the school committee that they have the right to change the agenda however they see fit, which is interesting because the amount of people here for public comment are teachers, and they all have school tomorrow at 7:25 or 8 o'clock in the morning, so if they're groggy, you all know the reason why. A school is not defined by hallways or test scores. It is defined by the people who refuse to give up on students inside of it. Good evening, my name is Layla Hosnander, and as of last Friday, I'm a recent graduate of Minnechaug. To put it lightly, Minnechaug was never my favorite place in the world. The last 4 years, I've been through the unimaginable, situations I would never wish on any adult, let alone someone my age. Time and time again, I wanted to give up, but a certain group of people kept me going, and that was my teachers. My teachers changed my life. Freshman year, Dr. Benedetti took me under her wing. I eventually became president of her club. Sophomore year, when I didn't want to go to lunch because I had no friends, she was there and let me sit in her room. Junior year, she wrote my letter of recommendation for college. And senior year, she supported my decision to graduate early. She showed up for me, she was there for me, and supported me when others didn't. Mrs. Donovan was my shoulder to cry on. Her room was my safe space. She just supported my decisions and gave me a place where I felt safe. Mr. Ingram supported my quest in following my dreams of becoming a musician. He stayed after for me. He bought books for my college auditions and encouraged me to keep going when others didn't. He watched me grow as a musician, trusted me to assist in his class as a teacher. As many of us know, the music program is often the first to face budget cuts, and when they happen, it's unfortunate. These programs are crucial for development of our children and as a creative outlet. Our teachers need a fair and equitable contract, not only because they deserve it, because they go above and beyond every single day to change the lives of students. As a daughter of a teacher myself, I see how hard they work and how much they sacrifice to ensure the success of their students. As many believe, our children are our future, and without teachers, they are nothing. I am living proof that when teachers are supported, students don't just learn, they survive. I am here today because my teacher showed up for me when I couldn't show up for myself, and now it's our responsibility to stand up for the people who stand up for our students every single day. Thank you.
My name is Carrie McConnell. I'm a paraprofessional at Green Meadows School. Tonight, we stand united before you so our voices can be heard. Many of us are community members, parents of HWRSD students, and paraprofessionals. We moved to this district because of the school system, strong community, and property values. The quality of our district is a major factor in maintaining our home values. Having well-funded schools, highly qualified educators will continue to attract new businesses and young buyers to our area. We are a strong community paying into a system that prides itself on high-quality education. Unfortunately, we can't sustain our reputation without a fair contract. Paraprofessionals play a critical role in our district. Our expectations include supporting students with complex needs, managing crisis situations, ensuring compliance with IEPs, behavior regulation, physical safety, and supporting instruction. Without the support of paraprofessionals, our student learning is often disrupted. That can result in the district falling out of compliance with our educational requirements. Many of us are veteran paraprofessionals. We know our students like the back of our hand. We meet our expectations daily, often going above and beyond what is expected. A fair contract will ensure student successes within our schools and validate our hard work that is poured into this district day after day after day. In closing, paraprofessionals are essential to HWRSD. We are a critical component of this educational system and have found ourselves yet at another roadblock. Our responsibilities continue to increase, while compensation has still remained at a rate that is not even a livable wage. A fair contract will demonstrate this district's commitment to equity, respect for staff, and alignment with educational values that HWRSD represents. I'm going to speak on behalf of us all. We are an investment. We are an investment in our students. We are an investment in our families. And we are an investment in this community. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I know I'm not here to ask for K-8 librarian. Anyways. Hi, I'm Georgina Trivey. I'm a resident of Wilbraham. I'm the Minnechaug Regional High School licensed school library teacher, and I'm also the HWEI Vice President for the high school. I'm going to take a different approach. In 2013, Headline celebrated a new contract that restored critical teaching positions. Those headlines didn't show the cost. Educators absorbed the district's financial pain, accepting a 1% COLA, foregoing step increases, taking furloughs, and paying more for health care. We didn't just do work here, we partnered with you, the previous school committee, to keep the district afloat. For many of us who have been here since 2013, and most of us here have, our history is defined by doing more with less. Pink slips, program cuts, and Band-Aid technology at times. We see the capital needs of our buildings not as line items, but as our daily reality. It is perplexing to see the district's share of town budgets fluctuate, knowing that even 1% shift has a detrimental impact to our classrooms. We, the educators of this district, are asking this committee to be the one that moves beyond the word partner and into the action of partnership. We rely on you to be our voice before the towns. It is time for a recalibration. Last year, town leaders asked for tangible goals to justify funding. Let's see those goals now. We are asking you to be the champions of our school district who finally defend a budget that provides a living wage and a strong future for our schools. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Isabella Curtin and I am currently a junior here. I can confidently tell you that teachers are some of the most important people that have impacted me. There are countless times I've been supported by my teachers, oftentimes off their working hours, whether it be helping me understand a difficult concept, needing an emotional space, or even just someone to talk to. To give some examples, I can recall Mr. Ingram standing after to help me play, even if I was in the music program, or Dr. Conkley and Mr. Newell working with me and other students to give us an opportunity to compete in Poetry Out Loud, or Mr. Griffith going out of his way to provide treats and prizes to encourage us trying harder to succeed, or Mrs. Lipinski waiting with me for a while after my mother forgot to pick me up on a half day. I can think all the way back to 5th grade, where Mrs. Mostalski created a little writing club to encourage my creative writing, and later hosted a class get-together during COVID. My teachers have shown up again and again to help me become the best person I can be by constantly providing me resources and encouragement, even when inconvenient to them. Our teachers are nurturing life skills that will become the foundations to our future careers and lives, and their efforts truly are what make or breaks education for their students. Judging by the number of students here, it's clear they've succeeded. Their official working hours are minuscule compared to the effort and presence they constantly provide. And it saddens me that their efforts aren't being properly addressed. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else that did not sign up for public comment that's interested in making public comment this evening?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julia Maturo, and I'm a teacher here at Minnechaug. And I first want to say I'm incredibly touched by the amount of students who have shown up to support us this evening. The piece that I've been ruminating on, though, is the fact that this is the district that everyone wants to be at least when I came here 8 years ago. But it's starting to not feel that way anymore, and I'm really worried for the future of our district. I have been saving my sick days for over 7 years because at the wise advice of some of my colleagues, they told me, no, don't take sick days, you're going to need to save them. Because when I eventually do want to have a child, potentially within the next year or so, I understand that I'm going to have to use pretty much the entirety of my sick days to do so, which that's the reality for teaching. And we have just been living with that. But there's been changes that have been coming, especially even in Western Mass, contracts that have been resolved recently, including at least some regard for maternity leave or paternity leave. And I'm hoping that this district can start to recognize that if we want to actually attract and maintain and retain the staff that we have, that's something that needs to be considered. That is a piece that if we want to actually maintain the staffing, because we all have seen the staffing shortages that have occurred across the country and even here in Massachusetts, that's a poignant issue that needs to be addressed. And there's a lot of young faces in this room, and there's a lot of older faces in this room. And the reality of that is that within the next decade, we're going to be a mishmashed district of younger teachers trying to pull it together, and we might not have the resources to do so. I love working in this district. I love my job. But I also have to draw a line with the work-life balance. And I really would not like to draw that line to the point where it becomes a detriment to either my life or the success of my students. And your support is where that's going to be. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that's interested in making public comment? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
We are going to continue with subcommittee updates. So we'll continue continuous curriculum subcommittee.
You wouldn't forget us.
We have a curriculum subcommittee meeting coming up in February to go over the program of studies, which then we will bring to the full committee.
Great, thank you. Planning committee, we are trying to decide on a date, so we will be having meetings soon. It's likely going to be February 3rd at 5:30 in the district office. That's a Tuesday. We will continue with finance, operations, and technology. Mike?
I think we already heard an update from that meeting.
Excellent. The next meeting is?
The next meeting is going to be the Monday night before, I believe, the round table. Correct, Eric?
Our next meeting is the 11th, Wilbraham Finance.
At the police station.
At the police station.
Are those going to be posted meetings?
Yes.
That everyone's coming? Excellent. Okay, so February 11th, Wilbraham Finance to discuss budget or capital.
Capital is still pending for the 12th on Thursday. It's the virtual meeting. It's really confirmed, but Thursday the 12th at 7.
Okay.
With capital. But you're correct, there is a meeting the Monday before, on Monday the 23rd, before the school committee meeting on the roundtable on the 22nd.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, so we'll continue with the LPVEC collaborative representative, Lisa.
All I wanted to do was share the fiscal year 2025 LPVEC annual report, which is just an overview of the educational programs that they have, the business programs they have, and educator support services. So I'm really just going to flip through it really quickly. I don't even know. I'm like, you guys can just scroll through that. It talks about the regions that we service, how we're set up, SPED enrollment, the programs that we have for special ed services. Then after that, we have career and technical education. It shows the enrollment from all of the member towns and a few of the out-of-district placements that we use to make, how do I explain that? Make it cheaper for us to go. John, how would I say that nicely, though?
Subsidize the tuition for member districts?
Yes, thank you. Right now, I don't know if it's going to say it in here, but we are expanding the criminal justice program. Right now, it's just freshmen that are in it, but it's going to expand each year. And then we applied for a grant to the state, so we're hoping to expand. I'm afraid to say it in case we don't get it, but for electrical. So we're hoping that goes through. We would need space for that as well. Yeah, that's about it. And it's on their district website, and if anybody else wants to look at it.
Lisa, can you hear me?
You're not.
I am. I have it broken on the screen here.
Oh.
There we go, thank you. John, what was the name of the lady that was from LPVC, that was the.
Bonetta?
DE, yeah.
Yeah.
Is she still part?
Yep.
Okay. Did her title change, or is she still?
It did change. She requested a change. It's Director of Belonging. Do you remember what it was, John?
I believe I saw it in the report
It's
somewhere.
the same role.
I looked through, I couldn't find it, so.
And actually, our district is one of the districts that uses her the most out of all the member districts, so.
Oh, wow.
It's now called, if you go to page 22, the Department of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And I see the position referred to as coordinator in there.
All right, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. Negotiation subcommittee, nothing to report. We do have a mediation session tomorrow. Policy subcommittee, Mike?
Yes, we have the following policy that is up for second reading, middle school pathway awareness policy.
There is an amendment to that. As long as we bring up the amendment, we can continue to a third reading. Is that correct, John?
This amendment that you're referring to is the amendment I believe you're referring to is the sentence on page 2 that says HWRC will share the names and addresses of all enrolled 7th and 8th grade students with CTEC by October 15th each school year. That is the change that was added for the first reading and now the second reading. That's the sentence that the state asked us to add after we filed our policy. So the plan was to do the second reading tonight and then do the third reading at the next meeting.
That's right, yeah, okay. I just wanted to bring that change to everyone's attention.
Oh, and we have a meeting currently planned for Monday night, and Erin will send an email if it needs to be canceled. We don't really have a way to do it public with Zoom, so at least it couldn't have been live. It can't be live streamed. We don't have someone there in person, so we're not time critical, so we'll reschedule the meeting.
Do we want to reschedule now, just so we don't even have to, because we're going to be
I
hammered
looked
with
at the
snow.
forecast. I think that there's a decent chance it'll be fine by the evening.
Oh, okay.
I would wager a guess there's not a very high likelihood that there'll be school on Monday, but that doesn't mean, if the roads are clear and stuff, then, we could still meet.
This can be done online. This can be an email. Like,
yeah.
As far as whether the meeting continues, whether the meeting is canceled, I think we can continue.
Now, if school's canceled, does that mean the meeting's canceled?
Not necessarily.
Okay, I thought that was a policy that we had adopted. I don't know if it was official policy that
It's our practice, unless it's been urgent. So I know in situations where it's been time sensitive, we've certainly continued to hold a meeting if there was no school.
That's fine.
This is not time sensitive, so if I'm fine with it. If school's canceled, we'll cancel the meeting and reschedule by email.
Thank you.
And I can go either way.
You're not on policy though, right?
In case someone watching.
Oh.
So there'll be communication. So there's also the meetings are publicly posted, so you'll see the posting on any of the town websites, our district website, and then you'll also get a notification from Erin. So Erin, if you could do us a favor and notify everybody if the policy meeting is scheduled, that would be extremely helpful for this Monday evening. We can continue with, do you have anything for the LPDEC Corporation?
Nothing to report.
Perfect. And there's nothing to report at this time for the superintendent evaluation. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Okay, so we'll do roll call vote. Cheryl?
Aye.
Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
I'm still here, yes.
Perfect. And myself? Yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Do we need to read, it says donations down there. Are those donations that we've already approved? Or are there other donations? Because I don't see.
I had it on there because Sabrina thought she had one that didn't meet the criteria, so I got it posted, but we don't have any for this.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to double check because I didn't see it. Thank you.
So we'll continue with the superintendent's update.
Thank you. Just to orient you to materials that I'll be referring to during my update, there's really 3 separate documents. First is one pager. It's page 87 from the district's equity audit. It's an excerpt from recommendation 1. The next is a glossary of equity-related terms and definitions. This was included as part of the recommendation. It's the link on page 87 to the list of research-based equity terminology. And then the third document is something called HWRSD, Glossary of Equity-Related Terms and Definitions. So I'll be walking you through those as I give my report. I just want to make sure that you're familiar with those documents. So I've included the excerpt from the district's equity audit in your packets, just to sort of ground us in what this next update is about. It's the first part, page 87, is the first part of the first recommendation provided by Mass Insight, which was to develop a district-wide and community-shared understanding of the district's vision and plan for advancing equity. One way in which we worked towards that goal was through the development of our Vision of Equity Statement, which you approved last year. Another recommended action was to identify key terms related to our equity work. As a former English teacher, it struck me that both of those goals are language-based goals, and I think that touches on something deep in the human condition. Confusion of languages is a recurring motif in world literature, and it's often pointed to as the beginning of discord and misunderstanding and disunity among peoples. And on the other side, when you feel that you can easily share thoughts and ideas with another person, you might say that they speak your language, or they speak the same language. So the goal for us is to create some common language and shared understandings of equity so that we can communicate easily and effectively about the work. To get us started on the development of our own index of terms, Mass Insight provided a glossary of equity-related terms and definitions. That's the second document. Comes, as it's organized in your book, is the one that comes directly after the page from the recommendations. Working from that resource, our DEIB committee developed the HWRSD glossary of equity-related terms and definitions. Instead of going through each of the terms, I would like to highlight only the changes we made from the model, because those modifications point out what's most important in our district's equity language. So starting from the Mass Insight document, you'll see that a few items have been crossed out. That's because they've been eliminated from our final list. I'll go through each of those crossouts and explain why. The first term we reorganized was achievement gap. To provide more context, we combined that term with opportunity gap. In connecting the two terms, we sought to articulate the connections between the systemic inequities students are exposed to and the impact that can have on outcomes for individual students. We also updated the definition of opportunity gap to highlight the definition provided by Gloria Lanzin-Billings, who is an authority on culturally relevant teaching. The second term we took out is economically disadvantaged. That is a measure of economic need used by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or DESE, from 2015 to 2021. However, the passage of the Student Opportunity Act required DESE to use a different measure of economic need. The new metric is labeled low income. The term economically disadvantaged is not current and does not have the same meaning as low income. The HWRSD version of the list updates to modern terminology. The next entry we eliminated was racial and ethnic identity. We felt this was somewhat duplicative of a prior entry concerning identity, so we listed racial and ethnic identities as kinds of identities, and also listed a couple of other identities that could be included with the term identity, although this list is representative only and not comprehensive or inclusive of all identities that are included under the term identity. Finally, we eliminated stakeholder. That term is used in a lot of contexts, in our opinion, didn't carry any specific equity-related connotations. Now for our additions. You'll see them on the third document, and they'll be marked with plus signs on our list. The first term we added was anti-Semitism. We used the working definition of the 31 member states of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, of which the United States is a member. The reason why should be obvious. In just the past few weeks, we've seen the events at Bondi Beach in Jackson, Mississippi, and learned that for the first time since records have been kept, anti-Semitic incidents have become the most common type of hate crime in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In our view, it's essential that our equity vocabulary explicitly name anti-Semitism as a unique form of hate so that our community is better prepared to create safe environments for Jewish students and their families. The next term we added was barriers. We used the term in our Vision of Equity statement, so we wanted to make sure that everyone understands what barriers means. We borrowed the definition from the Center for Disease Control. What I like about this definition is that it explains how barriers may be linked to an individual's condition, such as a communication impairment or a physical disability, and that barriers may also be embedded within systems or policies or programs. In my experience, a lot of the barriers students face in education arise from the interaction between certain barriers that may be thought to be within the individual and barriers that exist within our systems. And the primary goal of any kind of equity work is to eliminate or reduce those systemic barriers. The next item we added is bullying. As we discussed over the past several years, identity-based bullying has disproportionately impacted certain students, particularly students with disabilities. And a lot of our equity work is focused on reducing the level of bullying in the district. We use the definition from our bullying prevention and intervention plan, which aligns with the state bullying intervention law. Next, we revised the definitions of culturally responsive and linguistically sustaining practices. Mass Insight had offered the definitions adopted by Boston Public Schools, and there's nothing in those definitions that we disagree with. However, DESE has adopted its own definitions of those terms, and whenever possible, we've tried to align our language with state or national entities rather than other school districts so that our definitions are not idiosyncratic or unusual. Our next addition is disability. As you've heard me report time after time, and even tonight, some of the greatest barriers and most significant equity challenges in our schools are experienced by students with disabilities, which is why we wanted to have a clear definition of disability in our list. Harassment we added because of its close association with bullying. It's not uncommon for investigations initiated due to a bullying complaint may end up in a finding of harassment. In common parlance, people use bullying and harassment almost interchangeably, but for us, the words have very specific and distinct meanings. We've taken the language from the Massachusetts Association of School Committee model policy, which aligns with our policy to define harassment. Earlier tonight, I used the term hate crime. Associated with that is the notion of hate speech. These are the next terms we added. They connect with other terms in our list. And for example, a bias incident may involve hate speech or even become a hate crime depending on the degree and severity of the behavior. For those terms, we use the general definitions from Black's Law Dictionary. We revised marginalized population with the addition of the word historically to indicate that the discrimination or exclusion faced by certain groups often has a long historical antecedent and is not a new phenomenon. I've already discussed the revisions we made to the term identity, so we'll move on. Our next addition is Islamophobia. We took the definition from the U.S. National Strategy to Counter Islamophobia and Anti-Arab Hate. FBI data concerning hate crimes shows that anti-Muslim hate incidents, which were nearly non-existent prior to 9/11 have remained permanently elevated in our country for the past quarter of a century. We want to ensure that Muslim students and students of all faiths and students of no particular faith experience an education that is free from discrimination. I've already talked about low income, which brings me to microaggression. This is the term that the students from our group felt most passionately about including because it's where they see inequity showing up in their experience of school. The definition, which we took from Gerald Wing Sue, is, and I'll read this because it was so important to the students, quote, everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership, close quote. So this is much less extreme than bullying and harassment or some of the other behaviors we talked about. As we are seeing rates of bullying and other behaviors decline in our district, this issue, microaggressions, may be the next climate challenge for us, though I think it's going to be one that's much harder to track since most microaggressions don't result in any kind of documented administrative record. I've discussed opportunity gap, so I'll move on to othering. This is another term for our vision of equity statement, the term that's not necessarily known by all. We use the definition from the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. The only revision we made to people of color was to add the term BIPOC. That's a term that sometimes confuses people, so we just added that piece. The next fully new term is privilege. I think the term is inherently difficult because the spectrum of privileges is so wide, and people who have some privilege may simultaneously also be disadvantaged, which is a hard concept, I think, sometimes for people to hold in their mind. So this definition, which we took from Adams, provides at least a taste of that nuance. The term race we revised to align with Massachusetts law prohibiting racial discrimination, mainly because that statutory definition is embedded in many district policies. We added trauma, using the definition from the American School Counselors Association, because some experiences of inequity, if severe or pervasive enough, can manifest as trauma. Finally, we added the collection of terms unhoused, homeless, and people experiencing homelessness, which all mean the same thing. This one is tricky because anytime you have multiple words with the same definition, there's an opportunity for confusion. So that's the new terminology. Now that we have this terminology, our goal will be to share it to multiple needs, including the district website, student handbook, and internal communications with staff. To return to my opening remarks, I hope this will allow us to speak the same language as we debate the best ways to advance the equity goals of our district. And that's my report.
John, may I make or have a comment?
Sure.
So you have the definition of anti-Semitism and you have the definition of Islamophobia. Is there any way that we could do the definition of Islamophobia to mirror that of anti-Semitism, such as Islamophobia is a certain perception of Muslims which may be expressed as hatred towards Muslims. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of Islamophobia are directed towards Muslims or non-Muslims individual and or their property, towards Muslim community institutions and religious facilities.
Well, our goal in this was to use definitions that had been validated by other sources. So it wouldn't be consistent with our practice to make one up based on a definition of something else. If you think this definition from the U.S. National Strategy is deficient, we could look for a different definition, but I wouldn't want to sort of wordsmith one based on a different definition.
I just wanted to give equal gravitas, is that the right word, towards both forms of hatred.
I guess I think I heard you saying, and I just want to clarify that the fact that the two definitions are not the same does not mean that one is perceived as being more important in our list than the other one. It's just that they have different definitions that have been developed by groups that work on these issues.
Okay, understood.
Any other questions for John? Great, thank you so much. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 4th, here in the IRC at 6:30. We do have the need for executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, C Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. School psychologist MOA, Units A and C contracts, communications about negotiations.
Second.
Okay. We will be adjourning from executive session, so we will not be returning to regular session. And so we will do the call to move into executive session. Cheryl? Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Rich? Okay, myself? Aye. It's 9:10 p.m. We're moving to executive session. Thank you.
Rich, I'll call you when we get to the other room.